morning! This is the Poetry Studio. And this is me in the Poetry Studio. Hello, everybody. Is my hat on right? Yeah, my hat's on right. There we go. Morning, Chair Alex. Good morning, everybody that is about to be and will be tuning in today. It'll be wonderful to see you all, as well as to anybody that is watching this on a replay. Thank you so much for your support and for sitting back and enjoying the poetic musings of the morning. I had my book here for some poetry. We started this morning off with, there we go, wrong direction, with the song instrumentals for There Must Be Discipline. I am feeling like there's a big day to tackle, and I am ready to tackle it. And I'm looking for a poem that would be something. Ooh, I like this. That would be kind of, I don't know if it would describe discipline, but just something that's a little more on the like strength side. I like this poem that I just turned to, In Aimless Love, Billy Collins' book. Billy Collins is one of my favorite poets. He writes very plainly and just talks about really awesome things. And it looks like this one is really interesting because it's full of metaphors. It almost looks like it has too many metaphors. Let's dive in. This is Litany by Billy Collins. You are the bread and the knife, the crystal goblet and the wine. You are the dew on the morning grass and the burning wheel of the sun. You are the white apron of the baker and the marsh bird suddenly in flight. However, you are not the wine in the orchard, the plums on the counter, or the house of cards. And you are certainly not the pine-scented air. There is no way you are the pine-scented air. It is possible that you are the fish under the bridge, maybe even the pigeon on the general's head. But you are not even close to being the field of cornflowers at dusk. And a quick look in the mirror will show that you are neither the boots in the corner nor the boat asleep in its boathouse. It might interest you to know, speaking of the plentiful imagery of the world, that I am the sound of rain on the roof. I also happen to be the shooting star, the evening paper blowing down an alley, and the basket of chestnuts on the kitchen table. I am also the moon in the trees, and the blind woman's teacup. But don't worry, I am not the bread and the knife. You are still the bread and the knife. You will always be the bread and the knife, not to mention the crystal goblet and, somehow, the wine. Wow. So I do sometimes pick these poems out at random, and that one I kind of did. And that one, I am still trying to figure out what it means. There's a lot happening here. Bread and knife, crystal goblet and wine. Wine in the orchard. Fish under the bridge. I think that what it says ultimately is that the person that the poet is speaking to, and this might be an oversimplification, but it's, and Wednesday Chess David is like, yes, that's a winner. I think this is very much around your style. I see your style in this. But I think that what it means to me, at least, is that, especially in that first stanza, that the person that the author is speaking to is essential. Is not something that is like a house of cards, which is something that could fall apart, but like the burning wheel of the sun, which is something that always comes back around. Here's where we do the workshop of the poetry workshop. But also that the author himself feels like that he is almost like ambience. Because a basket of chestnuts on the kitchen table, I like that one the best, and it's actually the one I relate to the least. Because it's kind of like an aesthetic to have the basket of chestnuts on the kitchen table. My grandparents would always have a basket of nuts in their house. They still do. And they wouldn't always eat them. Like, they eat them like once in a blue moon. So the author, the speaker, tends to feel very, feel very inessential compared to this person's essentialness. It's a love poem, full of wild and interesting imagery. Litany by Billy Collins to get us started into our poetic morning. So, I wanted to know, and I don't know if I can tell right now. We got Patrick Smith here. I'm looking at the users lurking because I was going to start getting started on Claire's poem about Salford today. So I got a whisper from, I think Claire15 is the username, and she was on our show 2 days ago, and she said, I'd like a poem about Salford. The town of Salford, more probably a city, is basically kind of like a part of a twin city relationship with Manchester in England. And she said, look up the history and write something that kind of incorporates that history. So I'm debating whether I want to jump into it now, because she's not here, and surprise her. Or if I do want to wait till she comes onto the stream so that she can comment as I go along. But what I usually do for my first start of what I would consider draft poems is I kind of, and especially this poem, I mean, I could write a poem off the spot on Salford, but I like the idea of just taking ideas that I have about the city and putting them together. Kind of almost like throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what it sticks. Starting with the, if I were a painter, starting with splotches of color here. Oh, look, she's here! Claire is in the building, so we're going to do this. We're going to start the poem on Salford. So, Claire, your poem on Salford is going to be an edited poem, which means it's going to be one that I'm going to work on over several streams. What I'm going to be doing today is going to be kind of coming up with ideas, and if I come up with it, if I come up with it on the first try, then it's like, oh, that's great. But this poem about Salford, I'm probing and I'm diving deep. And believe it or not, my grandmother, and I think I told you this in whispers, is from Lancaster, Lancashire. Lancashire or Lancashire? She pronounced it both ways on the phone. My grandmother's like I think she's like nearly 90 years old, so I think she's having a... Well, thank you very much, Steve, for getting her in the building. This is great. Appreciate it, Steve. But yeah, my grandmother from Lancaster, Lancashire, she's 90 years old. She's losing her mind, so she pronounces it both ways. But God bless her. And she told me she didn't know much about Salford. Well, it is either Lancashire or Lancashire. They're both spelled the same way. I guess I would say Lancashire is probably the better pronunciation. But the only thing she remembered from Salford was when the kids, during the war, Lancashire. First way, Lancashire. Thumbs up in the chat if it's Lancashire, and pogs if it's Lancashire. But I think we'll have thumbs up in the chat for Lancashire. Yes, we've confirmed that it is Lancashire. Thank you. So she remembers when during Second World War, when all the kids were shipped out of the cities because of what was going on with the bombings, with the Blitz. She remembers the kids from Salford coming up. When I read about Salford, there's a real long history of, and I want to say this, and maybe you can tell me whether this is true or not, but I feel like that there's this sort of this individualism that it kind of feels towards Manchester. I found it so interesting how it was established separately from Manchester and kind of prides itself in that. That there is a up, down, and upswing. Thank you so much for tuning in, Whole DJ. We are talking about the city of Salford in Manchester. But this is one of those things that just I love about creating poetry, and I love about interacting with people on Twitch, because this led to a call to my grandmother, and then she was talking about the mountain chain that is over in that area. But yes, so Claire15 says definitely that there's this sort of distinction from Manchester, because when you look at it on a map, it doesn't look distinct. I'm going to just say that out, but it is. And that's the key here, is what is it like to kind of be a combination of individualism and the shadow and the association, all in the sense of pride. And that's kind of a very British thing that I've noticed. Like, my wife and I are going through The Crown, and I also know about British history. And there was this episode about when Prince Charles is installed as Prince of Wales, and how Wales on its own is just kind of like, they kind of resent their place in all of Britain, and but they at the same time they're part of it, and Scotland has that history too, and so I think that's something that kind of came out with that, because the cities even fought each other at certain points, even though they were right next to each other. Stepbrother, or like older brother or younger brother was kind of like the association that I have, and in the 1200s it was established separate. And then the other thing that came to me was poverty and resurgence. That seemed to be something that was present. And I breathed Wikipedia. So if I'm cutting something wrong, let me know. And that's how I kind of have to do things as a pro poet. I have to universally know a little about everything. But what do you pull from that? What you pull identity from competition. You pull, and this is where the metaphors start building out. And how, in terms of workshopping, somebody termed this as a poetry workshop. This is, kind of explaining what my process is, what anybody's process can be. And I don't claim to know everything. But then I start thinking about terms of competition. I start thinking about that terms of association, that growth over the years, having all that history buried in that association. So I'm going to start kind of putting some ideas down on the page and seeing where it leads me. And that ultimately the thing is, from Manchester, we all stick together. And that is true. So it's kind of like a both of them. Like, I don't want to overemphasize the competition, but it's like family. It's like family. And sometimes you stumble on an image and you go, that's where I'm going to take this. Let's get some of our music back. What do we have playing? Oh, this is great. I like that welcoming aspect of Manchester that Claire is mentioning in the chat. If you're in the chat, Claire, does Salford have its own football team? And I mean football. I know I'm American, but I can know when I'm talking to Brits when the right way to phrase it. There you go, Salford City Football Club. I actually think I might have stumbled into it. Where is it? Where is my... Nope, that's not it. There we go. For those that are just tuning in, I am working on poetic notes, I guess is the way I describe it, about Salford in Manchester, England. Reviewing some of the points that I'm reading about on the internet. I'm so sorry, Claire, that you have that you are so engrossed in this, and I'm keeping you from your shopping. I will be done with this soon. And while I am writing, feel free to throw in the chat how everybody's day has been going, what the vibe is. I'd love to hear and be able to do some poetic creations after this, based on what people are looking for as they move into the day. I know that for me, my wife and I are, there's a certain part of our life where we're dealing with a lot of turmoil, not personally, but like looking out in society, things and groups that we belong to outside of the Twitch sphere are going through a lot of tumult, and we are trying to process that. And it's not necessarily something where I can, I don't want to make it into like a big societal thing, but like you spend too much time on social media, you hear a lot of different things. We are sharing our shopping plans. Everybody is going to be going shopping soon. Twitcher Alex is diligently working on uploading the archives for the descendants. It's so funny because Akira always talks about the ancestors, and shout out to the ancestors. But we also have to shout out to the descendants. We're going to be the ones that are going to be having, electronic implants in their teeth and able to queue up Akira's stream merely with a thought, or Disco's stream with a thought. Recently did that in a poem. So I've run out of page here, and I think I'm going to be comfortable with that. So in no way, Disco's Fridays tomorrow. We might be able to raid Steve Disco Newsom tomorrow, which will be exciting. That would be great. So I'm going to tune down my audio here as I read from these poetic notes. The image of family hasn't really fleshed itself out yet, but what this is these are the first musings, notes, unordered ideas for a poem about Salford, for Claire 15. Family. The twin houses are open-hearted, overflowing across the river as history builds their foundations, welcoming and combating through the 800-year history, sending the volley across the pitch of time, the kick in the gut pride of the Middle English countryside. Your neighbors spread music and mayhem into the world, and your brother, the ununited, united friend, finally after all those years. Centuries from the cannon fire of parliamentary debate, and running through the night moves of mid-century madness, a heartbreak where the rivals in night secret held each other, letting the storm of severity and furiosity at those coined injustices pass, lingering in the rubble, now clearing, now building, now high-rising to new heights. And then this is kind of like a fragment, this next part. This is based off of the L.S. Lowry imagery and art, famous painter that painted scenes of the factory lives in Salford and neighboring cities. You painted the picture of the working day, love's labors found on ink in the factory floor. As the smokestacks rose and fell, you build on. So these are opening notes about Salford. Now what I tend to do is I tend to pull and push from what I see here, and I create something which is a little more concise, a little more organized. I don't in any way claim that this is accurate, good, or ending. There's repeats, there's cliche phrases, but all that tends to get flushed out in the editing process. What this gives me the freedom for is it gives me the freedom to explore, which is different than the freedom of kind of a 5-minute poem, which is that I pin down, I find one thing, and I kind of just ride with it. Like I could write a poem about Salford and have it be about one thing. I could make it about that brotherly conflict, but I want to get deeper. I want to really try to see how much more I can integrate into one piece. Claire, I hope you like it, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. If you have any thoughts, ideas, feel free to drop them in the chat. Thank you again so much for being here. So we have, it seems to be becoming a theme among the viewers here that shopping is often a thing that happens. So I think that Steve Disco Newsom has to be out shopping in another 10 minutes. So why don't we write about that? I heard that Tesco is a grocery store that is a common grocery store there, and maybe that is true. And so I can write a little bit about shopping, at least if that's the type of shopping that you guys are doing, or a different shopping. And I'll dive into that. Food shopping for a stew. The stream is not over. We still have another poem to go. It's just going to be a quicker poem. And believe it or not, this is actually good because I have to go shopping for food today. Now, my wife and I, what we've been cooking has been very easy to shop for, but it hasn't been healthy. So I'm deciding to kind of go a little further and have to figure out a new recipe. And you know, believe it or not, I find that just massively a challenge because I'm like got all the stuff to do, routines, life that I have today. I don't want to have to be able to have to go shopping. Steve Disco Newsom says, how are your affiliate figures looking? We are good. We are locked in on affiliate, but the problem is Twitch. They won't let me add my them and I are going back and forth in help articles about some of the business issues. They, for some reason, the way that they have things set up is it's not accepting my DBA, which is doing business as. So as a business, as owning being a sole proprietor for a business, I have my name is on my tax returns, but when I front face my business, it's Walking Wall Poet. So as a result, I type all that into Twitch's affiliate setup, which is now partnered with Amazon. So that might be why you guys didn't have as much issue before setting up. And it's a god awful mess. They just get it wrong every time. I type everything in right and it doesn't work. I send them something to their help desk and they don't acknowledge it. So fun. But I'm still streaming, still setting things up, and just keeping on going with this because that's not going to dissuade me. My goal today is to submit a new help ticket with screenshots that painfully explains my problem. So that is my affiliate status. We did have so technically I am affiliate. Woo! I just need to actually get the paperwork done. And I did some research. I'm not at risk of losing it. So, God forbid anything happens and there's a day where things are slower on the stream, they're not going to penalize me for it. So, but I'm just glad to be here, and I really do appreciate everything that you guys have done to be able to help me get there. It means so much. Wind City Chess says, I know the feeling, and I think that's in response to having to go shopping. Let's type a poem about shopping. Yep, it is unlocked, but it's just the forms now. Yeah, that big day we had 2 days ago, it really was just, I was, when we got to raid Akira, I told my wife after that, I was so elated. It really just meant a lot. I was super happy about it. So I'm glad that this thing has been doing well and that people are finding meaning from it. And as always, if you're watching this and you're going, hey, it would be more interesting or more, unique if you do this or that, feel free to chat. Wind City Chess says, yes, thanks to the pandemic, I found new parts of the grocery store. And I appreciate the kind words, Disco and Alex. But indeed, the new parts of the grocery store. I think you just wrote my first line. Codis had his best Wednesday yesterday due to my raid, but my raid was due to Twitch or Alex. We are a team. And that's one of the things that I have to, when you and I talk eventually, Twitch or Alex, I like the idea of carrying my show into the Akira show, but I think that if I raided every day, it would be weird. But definitely on a semi-regular basis, I love the idea of just jumping, if we do have a crew that sticks around for these, just jumping straight into the Akira stream. And being kind of the poetic opening. Oh, how beautiful! There is a hot air balloon that is soaring by my development. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's cheap. I can't say that. I can't say of life. It's just a poetic cop-out. David, you know that. Or the mundane barges through the same aisle of my habits. The known routine of recipe. Now I must try new. Take the and Um. Alrighty. So, so Joe Alex says, not at all Walking While Poet. You can raid whoever you want and however often you want. I'm raiding Disco Steve literally every opportunity I get. There are no rules, says David. And then Steve says, we are a rogue unit. Flying about, man, that's a poem that one day I could jump in and write. And I'm taking down these ideas so that I always have something. The rogue unit. I like it. So in dedication for the shopping trips of both Steve Disco Newsome and Claire's 15, this is a poem, Shopping. And it'd be better if you weren't staring at my typewriter and we didn't have music playing. Rogue poets. Well, what's interesting about saying rogue poets is so typewriter poetry has a lot of history in something called beatnik era. If you may have heard of it or not, but it's like Jack Kerouac type of stuff. And what that era was is it's like, like celebration of jazz right after World War II. And I'm rambling about a bunch of themes, but the point is that they were nuts. They were crazy. They would run around town. They would stay up all night, all day, party hard, and then write crazy stories on the typewriter about their mischievous endeavors. Yeah, David, you know what I'm talking about. And I need to get more into Kerouac's poetry. Charles Bukowski is kind of the tail end of that, Twitcher Alex. So when you're thinking about, and it was Patrick Smith that said rogue poets. Because Charles Bukowski's poetry is just like he was working in a post office. He just didn't care. He just wrote exactly what he felt, and it turned out that that's what everybody wanted. So it's really cool when you hear those stories about those rogue poets. Rogue unit, rogues poets. Tune in tomorrow for some poetry on that. I think I'm going to commit to writing that tomorrow. But for now, thank you so much, everybody that has tuned in today. And I think that I'm going to raid only occasionally, but still do it on a regular basis. A lot of times I've got to jump right into my morning and get my uploads done before Akira stream, because when Akira stream happens, I tend to be just zoned in on that, or filling my dishwasher. If you are lurking in the chat, thank you again so much for being here. I take poetry requests. Based on the chat and how everybody's feeling and talking, I grab that vibe and I just put that into the poems that I'm working with. Literally, poem about shopping because several people said that they were going to go shopping. We have fun with words here. But thank you again all for being here regardless. And if you ever have anything that you want to see in the stream, let me know. If you ever want a specific request outside, you could whisper to my Twitch. You can message me on Instagram at WalkingWhalePoet or email me at yourfriend@walkingwhalepoet.com. Please follow if you haven't followed the channel yet. And eventually we will have a subscribe function and we will be able to have fun with bits and start doing crazy, weird things with all that. But for now, we are going to settle with the poem about shopping. For all those today that at a certain point today or tomorrow, if you are in the evening on the other side of the world, have or had or will have to once again walk into those wonderful gleaming aisles of the grocery store to be able to find the food we need to survive. Shopping. Those new parts of the grocery store, the ones far away from the golden arches, or mundane marches through the same aisle of my habits, the known routine of recipe. Now I must try something new. Take the Goya or food from Korea or another otherworldly mix, and whisk up sustenance. Seeing the million choices inflate my anxiety. I grab at boxes with my store brand intelligence and wonder at this. Where are the crops? The mornings by the butcher kosher in downtown Brooklyn? Where is my farmer's market mission for the freshness of fruit? I will settle for these colors, exchange holding golden waves of grain, for an easy appetite that awaits just down the lane. Thank you again all very much, so much for being here. You all have a wonderful day and enjoy shopping, listening to wonderful Twitch streams, and having an amazing day. Thank you so much.